What is the magic here? I hope you can hear me. It's a very weird thing to speak and not hear yourself properly. Good afternoon. My name is Sorina Telanu, and I'll be moderating the last session of the parliamentary track. So thank you so much for still being here with us. We'll try to have this session a bit more interactive and also counting on your contributions as members of parliament. I understand you have had quite a lot of engagements with representatives of other stakeholders, but now it's actually the time for you to speak a bit more, so we will be counting on you for that. The topic for today, well, for the next 1 hour, is something you have actually discussed over the past 2 days in the parliamentary track around online trust and how to deal with harmful online content. So we will be probably repeating some of the things that have been already addressed, but we will be doing so more from a parliamentary perspective and what parliaments are doing at the regional and also at the national level. And then, as I was saying, I'm counting on you to contribute as well and bring good practices, experiences from your own countries and your own regions. We have 5 distinguished guests with us today. As I was saying, we're focusing on you, members of parliament, so we only have members of parliament here today, and we will be hearing some initial reflections from them and then turning to you. So we have Anusha Rahman, senator from Pakistan, Franco Metasa, member of parliament of Mercosur, Yogesh Bhattarai, member of parliament from Nepal, Svetlana Penkova, member of the European Parliament, and Ashley Souls, member of parliament from South Africa. So I'm going to ask a bunch of questions to you all and ask you to reflect on whatever question you think is more relevant for your work and for your experience as we're dealing with these issues, or as you're dealing with these issues as parliaments. Because we talk about harmful online content, and it's not so easy to define it, right, also from a legal perspective. What are the main forms of harmful online content that are affecting citizens in your country or in your region? If we're talking about the European Union or Mercosur, where are these harms coming from? Is it misinformation, disinformation, algorithmic bias? Is it platform design itself, other sources? And then, because AI is kind of the talk of the town these days, and at the IGF as well, are you seeing new risks linked with generative AI in terms of harmful online content? Then the second question would be, what laws, if any, has your parliament passed to tackle harmful content and improve trust online? And if these kind of laws are in place at a national or regional level, how are they addressing the, responsibilities and the roles of the private sector specifically, because we're talking about online content and mostly social media platform? Then how do you as parliaments ensure that measures to address online harms don't undermine human rights like freedom of expression, access to information, and privacy? And how do you make sure they are in line with the rule of law? We're talking about universal human rights, universal and international law. How are those national or regional law complying with international law? And beyond legislation, if we can also go a bit beyond that, what else parliaments are doing, have been doing, or could do to support more trust online? Think about capacity building, awareness raising, education. Are you working with other stakeholders on something which is not necessarily only legislation, which is at the core of your work? And maybe on a bit more of a negative side, are there any things you would like to share of experiences that haven't really worked? Like you tried something, but you saw it didn't really work because of something. So those are a bunch of questions. I'll let you pick what you want to reflect on, but I would very much appreciate if you try to pick as many of them as possible and maybe build on what your colleagues are saying as well. And we'll follow the order from the introduction. So I'll ask Ms. Rahman to please start.
Thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It's an honor to join this as a panelist on this very important platform, and you have asked all the right questions, I would say. The digital revolution that began as a slow whisper is a reality that we cannot now deny. And the transformation is not going to wait for anyone. We all know that today's Gen Z and the generations that will follow, this is not even new anymore. This is the normal. This is how they live. This is how they breathe. This is how they sleep. And the relationships and the identities and economies and even understanding of politics, they are all fundamentally shaped by technologies that evolve by the hour. So as parliamentarians, there is this demand, actually a change of mindset. We need to shift the way how we've always thought about the evolution, which has not come really as a revolution, but it has been over the last 15 years, a very huge shift in the way our Gen Z has grown up. So we cannot afford to treat digital technologies as temporary trends or optional upgrades. We must engage with them as core realities of governance, realities that hold the power to uplift or undo, empower, or to exploit. So digital tools are neutral by design, but not by consequence. And they can enlighten, educate, but they can also manipulate and divide. And our job as lawmakers is not to suppress this force, but to guide it responsibly. Not to over-regulate, but to facilitate wisely in ways that protect the freedoms without leaving our citizens defenseless in the face of online harm. So now when I talk of online harm, we found out that in the last 10 years, countries have developed the digital ecosystem, and realizing that there are no borders, the internet does not recognize flags, fences, or boundaries. We have tried to legislate in our own countries, expecting those legislations to be the final document of the day. But what did we see? We saw, and what happens, that online in one part of the world can and does affect lives everywhere. So the content online in Pakistan could hamper somebody living in the West or somebody living in the Far East. But that the digital policy accordingly has to be made as a space for international cooperation, not just a domestic regulation. What do? I made the law, the cybercrime law, in 2016, with immense opposition coming from the people of interest groups. So I won't say a particular name or a particular person, but a mindset. And the mindset was being governed by the fear that there is going to be a curb of freedom of expression. But this was not the case. We were making and introducing 28 new offenses online, giving people those rights which they had offline, but they were absent online. So giving the vulnerable, the women, the girls, the children, the rights that we introduced in 2016 became the foundation of the law that came forward eventually in the form of protecting the citizens. But there is this responsibility that goes with the governments, that the digital progress is upholding human dignity. It is upholding democratic freedom and giving access to everybody. So we experienced that in Pakistan, for example, that even if when we made the law, the social media platforms continued to govern our request as if we were 2 kilometers, not above the ground, not impacted by the law. And they decided to choose what content they were going to remove and what content they were going to keep on the social media platforms. So there has been and is a continuous issue in our country that when the regulator sends out the request to remove the content, and I will give you by example that this content relates to a girl, and she's a university student, and she's being harassed by somebody, and they have created a content on AI or any other through other means, which looks like real. By the time that content is removed, the life of that girl is gone. So when I was legislating, I had dozens of examples of girls actually jumping off the wall, killing themselves, committing suicide, and stuff like that. And in my country, even an aspersion on a girl is good enough to kill her. So even if they would not die physically, but they are dead emotionally. So we need to be very careful of the fact that the culture in which we are living, the social media platforms have to be sensitive about that culture. And this is the real challenge, how to make the social media platforms sensitive to the cultures. For them, it's a revenue. Every single post on the social media platform is a revenue generating mechanism. It's not a fight between East or the West. It's a fight between revenue generation entities versus a revenue curbing request. So we need and we expect that, that this platform today, where the UN enters with the IGF, we can together use the technology platforms without fearing that these technology platform contents are going to be harmful for our children, for our girls, for our women, for the vulnerable. And believing in technology, and being a former minister for technology, we all believe that we have to explore and we have to explore, and we promise and we want to ensure that we are going to use the technology for shaping the future of the legislation, transparency, and bringing more efficiency and effectiveness in the functioning of the way the parliamentarians work. So in the Senate of Pakistan, for example, advancing the vision of technology adoption, the chairman of the Senate has for the first time taken a concrete step towards developing an AI-powered Senate chatbot. It's a virtual assistant designated to support lawmakers, secretariat staff, and citizens with real-time access to legislative data, procedural guidance, and multilingual services. This project proposes full-scale design, development, and institutional deployment of the Senate chatbot, transforming it from a promising prototype into a high-impact digital parliamentary assistance tool. So we are working using technology at the same time. My concern and your question would still take us again back to this discussion table, that for how long are we going to continue to wait for the use and absorption of the technology positively when abused online, to continue to be abused online by the vested stakeholders, and how long would social media platforms would take to listen to the governments and their requests to remove objectionable content and to secure the vulnerable groups and the non-vulnerable groups equally online. And we are now tired of waiting, and I would urge and request all the other parliamentarians to come together to make a joint strategy where we can collectively speak to the social media platforms and help our vulnerable citizens in our respective countries to ensure that their offline rights are as secure online. This is what my humble request is. Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing to the table so many issues. If I may ask a follow-up question, you mentioned you worked on a cybercrime law. Was that law passed already in the parliament? Sorry, Ms. Rahman?
Yes, sorry?
If I may ask a follow-up question.
No, I have to, your voice is actually echoing, yes.
Yeah, you have to listen.
Yeah.
Trying again. Let me also remove this. So if I may ask a follow-up question, you mentioned you were working on a cybercrime law. Was it passed in the parliament? Is it approved?
Yes, it was made in 2016. I started working on it in 2014. It took me 2 years to bring in a collaborative effort, bringing all the parliamentarians on board, listening to the civil society, listening to the NGOs, listening to the independent groups, listening to the media, because as I said, the internet is perceived, anything that will happen on the internet is perceived as an activity, as if it is going to curb the freedom of expression, which is not the case. So it is not about curbing the freedom of expression. We believe in it and we uphold it. It's about protecting children, women, girls, and all vulnerable segments. And in this case, men and boys are equally vulnerable, because the dignity of a natural person is extremely important to protect. So this is what we made the media to understand, that we are not targeting electronic media. We are not targeting print media. We are talking about social media, which is full of misinformation, propaganda, and fake news. And we need to protect our citizens from this, because it leads to harassment and it leads to other kind of vulnerable situations which need to be looked and criminalized in our law. So in 2016, we made the cybercrime law. It's called Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act, and it's a consensus document of the entire 240 million people representation in the parliament by their MPs in both National Assembly and the Senate.
Thank you. I'll
Thank
get back later to you with one more question, but let me give the floor to Mr. Metaza to share your experiences.
Hello, good afternoon to everybody. I'm going to speak in Spanish, which is one of the official languages of my regional parliament. Quiero empezar agradeciendo a...
First of all, I would like to thank the Department of the UN and also the IPU, the Norwegian government, for this parliamentary track during the IGF. I'm from the Mercosur Parliament in South America, with Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay and Bolivia, and they are doing some eternal legislation processes to become a full member. And we are now having a very heated debate in our region when it comes to these specific topics. And about the questions that were stated at the beginning of this session, what we are seeing with a lot of concern in our region, we are starting to list and to codify what these issues are about. We are talking about racism, we are talking about homophobia, xenophobia, and the use of drugs. And since we were asked to give examples, I will give an example of a project that I presented in my parliament about something that maybe we don't have a translation. We are talking about aphobia against fat people. And what we proposed when it comes to this, there is content that is so harmful in social networks like Instagram in particular and TikTok, that makes young girls, and in general also the public, but in particular young girls, that induce eating disorders in these young girls. And this is something very concerning, what is then produced by images. And so if you register in social media and say you are a girl, 13 years old, you are bombarded with these kinds of images. And there can be also false accounts, and there are presented images with very, very thin people, something impossible to achieve. And also there are advice and advertising about surgery. And in Brazil, there are 13, 14-year-old girls who go to the doctor on their own to have aesthetic surgery done. And this is a very complex situation when it comes to the content that is so very harmful. And this dichotomy between regulations and freedom of expression, I would like to say that I don't think that ever, if one has parliamentary regulation on all or any on any expression, I mean, you cannot in that way shut down freedom of expression, because it is the majority's will. When in our societies we started to have motor vehicles, one needed to have some kind of speed limits. And one banned children from driving, for example, and that was not against the freedom of speech. And today, constantly scrolling online for children, that is as dangerous as going at everything you can against a red light, for example. And something I heard this morning, which also caused concern, I think here we have many stakeholders, but there was something I listened, maybe that's of particular interest for parliamentaries, which has to do with fake news and disinformation. That is also something that affects democracy. And as MPs, we must protect democracy. And in Argentina, my country, there was some systematic spreading of fake news about one of the state leaders, one of the most important opposition leaders, Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner. And there was hate speech related to this, and this was spread all over. So there was one person who listened to this so much, turned up in her home and shot at her. And luckily, she didn't die from this. But I mean, that is the extreme one can reach. And this was a confusion caused by hate speech online. And luckily, now this person is in prison. But I think we must pull the brake, and social media and internet without governance or without government, I don't think our democracies, which is the last thing we have in this complex world, where we'll see a nuclear bomb any moment. I think to save humanity, the only thing we can and must protect is democracy. Thank you very much.
Including for bringing up some of the metaphors you raised. I like the one about having rules for the use of social media, similar to having rules for driving a car on the road. We can unpack that a little later. One curiosity, within the Parliament of Mercosur, are you having these kind of debates, and are you looking into doing something collaboratively across the countries in dealing with harmful online content and creating more safe online? Again, not necessarily only in terms of legislation, but also looking at how to build more awareness, more capacity among users themselves so they can be better prepared to deal with harmful content. Because I guess not all the answers are in passing a law and then expecting for it to be applied, but also seeing how you can prepare people to deal with these kind of things. Any reflections?
Yes, Sorina, that's an important question. And currently in the Mercosur Parliament, there is consensus on the fact that companies can do more than what they are doing. They have budgets, they have the money, and they are not doing enough to pull the brake on what is the harmful content and not the fake news. So we all agree on that. That's the path to go.
Read about more responsibility for the private sector, and I know we have some private sector in the room, and I think we will want to hear from them as well, but later on that. All right, let us continue, and let's hear from Mr. Bataray, please.
Thank you very much, Sorina. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, fellow parliamentarians, ladies and gentlemen, friends from media. Good afternoon. It is a profound honor to be here today, representing the Federal Democratic Republic of Nepal. I extend my sincere gratitude to the organizer, especially the UN and the government of Norway, for creating this space where we can share our experiences and the collective seek wisdom. The topics before us, building the healthy information ecosystem, is one of the defined challenges of our era. This is not only the technical issues, it is a milestone for our ongoing democratic journey. Like many of you, we have witnessed the transformative power of the digital age. The internet and social media have opened up avenue for the experiences, connected our diverse communities, and given a powerful platform to citizens to engage in the civic life of our nation. It has been a remarkable force for the democratization. However, this progress is accompanied by the complex challenges. We grapple with the very real harms of disinformation that can fear the social fabric, and the rise of the online harassment that seek to silence vulnerable voices. These are legitimate concerns that very responsible government must address. In Nepal, we are currently in the midst of the profound national convention about how to best achieve the delicate the balance between upholding the freedom of expression and protecting our citizens from harm. This debate is reflected in the legislative proposal currently under discussion, including the proposal Social Media Bill and the Information Technology Bill. This proposal stems from the genuine desire to create safe digital environment. Yet, as a parliamentarian committed to the universal values of the human rights and the people-based democracy, I believe we must proceed with the utmost care. The Constitution of Nepal guarantees the freedom of speech and expression, and Article 19 establishes the right to information and communication as a fundamental rights. Parliament will not accept any law that contradicts the provision of Constitution. In Nepal, we have a National Information Commission and the Press Council Nepal as an independent oversight agency. Myself and other MPs have been participating in the program organized by the civil society organization, where there are the discussion on the right to information and communication. We are concerned about the negative impact of misinformation and disinformation on society. Everyone should be aware of the possibility that it can divide society by spreading the confusion about caste, religious, racism, gender, and the professions. Misinformation and disinformation are also having an impact on the tension and war taking place in different parts of the world today. This has also become the challenge for the national security. I am convinced that only civil liberties, human rights, open societies, democratic competition, equal access, and the citizen vigilance can make the state accountable to its citizens. The challenges brought about by the revolution in the digital sector should strengthen the sovereignty of the nation and the people. It should support world peace and humanity. For this, digital platforms should be regulated, not controlled. Cooperation, collaboration, and the solidarity should be strengthened. I am firmly convinced that the most effective and the sustainable path forward lies the empowerment and the strengthening of democratic institutions. We believe that only a healthy information ecosystem can make healthy democratic practices strong and accountable. I believe that the internet and digital platform will connect the people's heart. It will make life easier. It will bring marginalized communities into the mainstream. Let us this forum to reforming our collective commitment to this principle. Let us share not just our challenges, but our highest aspiration. I am confident that through the collaboration and the shared dedication to human rights, we can build a digital future that is not only safe and orderly, but also open, vibrant, and fundamentally free.
Thank you so much. I took quite a lot of notes while you were speaking, and I would like to get back to some points, maybe also later. But right now, I like how you said that we need responsible governance and that states can and should be accountable to their own citizens. I think those are important points to keep in mind also when you work on legislation. And because you said that social media has to be regulated but not controlled, my question would be, how are you interacting with technology platforms as you're working on this legislation in the country? Do you have any discussions with them? How is the relation being?
Recently, government submitted the bill about social media and digital platform, and we discussed with so many stakeholders in the different part and different organization, and the government request the suggestion from the different stakeholder. It is ongoing, but not in the conclude. So I hope we make the more effective law about social media and internet access, and especially in the cyber security also.
Thank you. Moving on to Ms. Penkova, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Serena. I will touch upon the question about the specific legislations, because we heard a lot of many examples, but we have the strong belief that Europe is still playing the leading role when we're speaking about digital legislation. Of course, we are at the stage of implementation still, but let's keep in mind that when we're speaking about the EU legislations, we are representing 27 member states. So if you allow me, I would start by emphasizing on some of the key and the most important EU legislations. And of course, it's not going to surprise many people in the room, as it was mentioned many times. I'm starting with the Digital Services Act, which is the flagship EU legislation when we're speaking about the regulation of the digital space. So basically, the DSA is meant to be tackling a lot of the issues and problems that were already mentioned throughout the whole day's discussion, at least today. So we're speaking about protecting minors and vulnerable groups, tackling cyber violence, tackling harmful content and disinformation. So everything more or less is part of the content of this very key and important legislative framework of the EU. But of course, it cannot act on its own. So we need some supportive legislations, and that's where we come to the Digital Markets Act, for instance, which needs to complement the DSA by ensuring a fair competition in the digital economy. I mean, we believe that this is key. So the DMA does promote greater choice for consumers and the interoperability of the digital service providers. Here, I will also have to mention the data governance and the GDPR. Those are key legislations to reinforce individuals' control over their data, while at the same time it promotes a trustworthy data sharing. So we are speaking about protecting human rights in the digital space. When I mention GDPR, I'm sure this is probably one of the most popular legislations of the EU and the most controversial one, but it also needs approves, updates, additions. Only last week, for instance, in the EU institution, we finished the negotiations of the procedural rules for handling cross-border cases. So when we're speaking about digital legislations, you have to be very pragmatic that the problems that we're resolving today would be very different in tomorrow's reality. So we have to be very flexible, and that has been extremely challenging for the regulators across the world, I would say, that you cannot always foresee the challenges in such a fast-growing and developing segments of the economy as it's the digital field. I've spoken a lot about the human protection and the main legislative framework that the EU provides, but allow me to mention two other key legislations that we are working. One of them is still being a work in progress, but they're focusing on the media freedom. So the European Democracy Action Plan, it's a plan actually, not a legislation necessarily. It needs to strengthen media freedom, but at the same time promoting pluralism. So basically, it combats disinformation in very specific cases that we've been observing happening quite a lot, especially in the context of elections, for instance, and foreign interference. So those are quite significant global challenges that we see at the moment. Of course, the Media Freedom Act, which is at the moment under negotiations, of course, tries to protect the independence of media freedom, transparency in media ownership, and advertisement as well. So there are many, many specific examples which are trying to resolve all the common problems that we are facing across the globe. But if you ask me to summarize like the 4 key priorities, which we're having as members of the European Parliament when we're working on those legislations. I'll probably there are many more than 4, but I've chosen to focus on 4 main ones for today's sessions. The first one, we really try to keep with the human-centric digital transformation. So digital transition while protecting citizens' rights. The second, combating online hate and disinformation. I've mentioned again the DSA's one's probably main goal is to ensure that there are stronger enforcement mechanisms against cyber violence, and we can get in more details if we need to. Third, it was mentioned many times, digital literacy and resilience. Without resolving and tackling this issue, none of those legislation or enforcements would be perceived, accepted, and successful. So the EU strategy at the moment is focused quite significantly on digital education. And last, but not least important, of course, is the children online safety. There are many sessions dedicated to this in the IGF. Tomorrow we're having one with the youth IGF, and the younger generation really has a very significant role to play in ensuring that this protection is actually targeted to the most vulnerable and to the minors. And if you allow me the last 30 seconds, because when I'm speaking from the EU perspective, as I said, we have to take into account that we have 27 member states. So each one of them has a very different experience in enforcing those legislations. In the last 30 seconds, I would just share, I'm from a small member state, actually, I'm from Bulgaria. So we're still struggling, actually, to enforce and implement all those legislations that I've listed. But we have a very active civil society sector that at the moment, for instance, is launching a lot of campaigns on teaching the youth generation to identify fake news and to be a bit more aware of the critical thinking. What I mean by that is basically try to allocate or analyze the sources of the information, where the information is coming, because we have observed that the younger generation lacks that question. So they just see the information and they perceive it. I just wanted to mention that example because, yes, we do face a lot of challenges. Some of those legislations are very, very complicated, but once you have the state support, the regional governance, and the active civil society, nothing is impossible.
Thank you so much for raising, I think, 2 important points. First of all, being the one on enforcement. It's one thing to have laws in place, but then our authorities at the national level, as you're saying, empowered to actually put that law into practice. I'm from your neighboring country, Romania. I'm seeing the same challenges. Not easy to put in place all of that. And excellent points on literacy and capacity building and education and building critical thinking in young users, but also all of us. I think we would all benefit from a bit more critical thinking when we interact with digital technologies. If I may add one more thing that you might want to reflect on, how is the AI Act also connecting to all of this when it comes to more safe online environments and more transparency from the side of the private actors, for instance?
Well, I'm sure maybe some people would not agree with me, but I think the AI Act as it stands in the European legislation is probably the best one, which again protects the people. And of course, we've seen a lot of criticism, but what we want to do is ensure that there is innovation and growth, but of course, the first thing is protecting citizens' rights and ensure that there is enough time for the consumers to understand all the risks and challenges before we put a technology for very wide use. I think this was a bit the protection mechanism and the way of thinking of the European Parliament when we were working on that legislation, and that's why it did face a lot of criticisms.
Thank you. I think we can also come back to that later. All right, let's hear from our final, but not the least, speaker, Mr. Solz, please.
Thank you very much, Serena. Esteemed parliamentarians, distinguished guests, and fellow stakeholders in the realm of digital governance. Being from a country where our constitution protects religious freedom, In line with my faith, I want to greet you in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And in my First Nation, indigenous Busman mother tongue, at the brink of extinction, Ngoenke Auniki. It is with great honor, thank you. It is with great honor that I address you today at this pivotal forum where we converge to deliberate on the future of digital policy practices. As we navigate the complexities of our increasingly interconnected world, South Africa stands as a testament to the transformative potential of digital technologies while simultaneously confronting unique challenges that demand thoughtful and inclusive policy frameworks. A practical example is the recent disinformation about white minority genocide in South Africa, where an executive decision by the US government was largely made based on online information. The ripple effect of that was also fueled narrative about my race, classified as colored as a violent and gangster-ridden group. As a result, a local school, as an example, Atlanta Secondary School, had to host Loughborough Grammar School from the UK in South Africa for a rugby match this July, but it was cancelled. And it was cancelled because parents feared for what was said in the White House about our country. Our current Minister of Sport says a child in sport is a child out of court. My fellow parliamentarians in the UK, maybe you guys can help us convince management and parents to contribute to a different narrative through sport by ensuring that that match actually takes place. I hope somebody is listening to me about that. In South Africa, we recognize the profound impact of the digital landscape on our socio-economic fabric, with over 60% of our population accessing the internet. We see an unparalleled opportunity to enhance educational outcomes, stimulate economic growth, and promote social inclusion. However, these opportunities are accompanied by significant obstacles, including the digital divide issues, cybersecurity threats, and the need for robust regulatory frameworks that protect the rights of all citizens. Thus far, we have enacted the Protection of Personal Information Act, the Cyber Crimes Act, and the Film and Publications Act that regulates these platforms. To effectively enhance our digital policy practices, we adopted a multi-stakeholder approach that engages government, civil society, the private sector, and the public. This collaborative model is essential for fostering an inclusive digital economy where benefits are equitably distributed and innovation is harnessed to address local challenges. Moreover, as we advocate for robust cybersecurity measures, we must ensure that they do not infringe upon the rights to privacy and freedom of expression. South Africa is committed to aligning its digital policies with international standards, promoting a balanced approach that safeguards both security and fundamental human rights, as we would say in my mother tongue, goedes moet balance. By leveraging our position as a member of the African Union, we aim to encourage a continental dialogue that addresses common challenges and fosters regional cooperation in the realm of digital policy. In conclusion, the South African experience underscores the need for a proactive rather than the current reactive approach to digital governance. As we gather here today, let us reaffirm our commitment to a digital future that is inclusive, secure, and respects the rights of all citizens. Together, we can craft policies that not only uplift our respective nations, but also contribute to a more equitable global digital landscape that expresses the heart of politics, that prioritizes people above profits. Ayo, thank you. Siyabonga kakhulu.
Thank you as well, also for highlighting what some of the previous speakers have mentioned, the fact that there can be and there should be a balance between protecting safety and security and also ensuring protection of human rights. And we don't have to give one up to protect the other and the other way around. So thank you for highlighting that again. You mentioned the African Union. So my follow-up question to you would be, are there any examples of initiatives or discussions or projects being implemented or even put in place right now at the African Union level dealing with these issues that you might want to share with everyone? Sorry, again, I'm doing that. Apologies.
Well, not specific programs. I don't think it is as aggressive as one would want it to be. But I'd like to rather touch on the IGF approach. We have the South African Internet Governance Forum, and on that level, regionally and also continentally, there's a lot of programs and initiatives around that, and which, for the first time, I think, because of that approach, we now have us as parliamentarians participating. I think it's for the first time that we actually join in the forum, and it is because of those engagements on that level.
Thank you, and glad to have you on board. All right, we're kind of running out of time, and there are interventions that want to be made from the room, so let's see. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, thank you, Sorin. My name is Bibek Silwala, and I'm from Nepal. I'm an advocate for youth in policy. So thank you very much to all of the member of parliament, senators. I think it was very enlightening in terms of what are the work that has been going not just across the region but across the continents, and very much different focus areas in different regions. So my question is regarding the involvement of youth in digital policy making, or let's say just policy making. Each and every processes where youth are involved, I think it amplifies the impact of the policy making, whether is it in terms of implementations or whether in terms of the policy making in the initial process. Youth are always the positive catalyst of reaching out to the end mile. So my question is to all of the parliaments in your region, how have you been involving youths or in the days to come in policy making, or just let's say a public outreach program where awareness, how do you plan to engage and indulge the youth in your specific events or policy? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take the second question as well.
Hello to fellow parliamentarians. I'm Raul from the Philippines, member of the Philippine House of Representatives. I'd like to ask for your ideas or maybe concrete experiences about combating cybercrime, because in the case of the Philippines, we've had the Cybercrime Prevention Act in 2012. Unfortunately, it contained a cyber libel provision that we already flagged years ago. We have foreseen that it can be used by abusive or repressive leaders, and it turned out that it was actually used in recent times to go after journalists, even teachers who just had opinions that contradict those of the government of the day. So right now we are discussing possible review and amendments to the cybercrime law that we have, and you really are very guarded with that process. So there might be thoughts coming from fellow parliamentarians. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Shall we take these two questions and then continue? Anything on youth engagement and experiences with cybercrime law? Anyone would like to share? Please.
Bueno.
Regarding youth participation, in my country, what we have done is encourage young people to participate. They can vote from the age of 16, and we have a lot of young parliamentarians in our houses, in the House of Senators as well. So we understand that it is important to have young people participating. And when we try to draft laws, we try to listen to different voices. And what we don't like to do is guide them too firmly. We can't just leave the young people to sort out young people problems in a separate manner. No, we need to incorporate them into all our processes because they are very important for the political construction of society.
Okay, I'll try to be brief given the time limits, but for the youth involvement, I've mentioned tomorrow there is the Youth IGF event. I just share like 3 insights from our last conversation with them at the IGF in Riyadh. So they had many key messages, but like the ones I remember were like the digital economy will shrink if we don't regulate it. So the young generation understands that, and they want to be involved, and they want to be asked, and they want to be part of the conversation. Children, they do require protection. They don't see that as something which is limiting their rights. An interesting point that they brought, actually, was that the bloggers are not restricted in terms of the content that they're publishing. So this is something that regulators should pay attention. They signaled about that. So the young generation is very much ahead of many of the legislators when it comes to the new trends, and they want to be, and they are an active stakeholder in that. So it's not a matter if they want to be involved, it's a matter of us going there and reaching out and asking them. And the comment on the cyber crime, I'm just going to give an example again how it is dealt with in the DSA, for instance, when we're speaking about cyber violence. So illegal content has to be taken without a delay from the platforms once it's detected, and this decision has to be taken by the judge, not by the government. So this is one way to tackle the specific example that was given.
Yeah.
In Nepal, you know, the Nepal is a very specific country because we have so many languages, like 125 languages and 125 different castes. And between the Nepal is between the China and India, you know, the very big countries. So that issue is very special for us also. The youth engagement, it is very important. We have a national internet governance forum and also the youth internet governance forum in Nepal. So our parliamentarians are engaged with them to make the law and other legislative process. And second thing, which is the cybercrime issues. We have a cybercrime law, and there is the branch within the police. Police have a cybercrime branch, and they investigation the issues about the cybercrime, and they submit any case in the court, and court maybe judge about the cybercrime.
Thank you, Serena. I think maybe I should start off by saying, let me be honest and transparent that in South Africa, we haven't really had an emphasis on youth involvement as much. But with the dawn of the shift of our governmental structure nationally, that's beginning to change. Many of you would know that we had a majority government, one-party majority government, since 1994. And now there's what is called the government of national unity. It's a coalition government. And so there's different minds, different approaches coming together, forming one government. And this has assisted to make it practical. We've got the leaders of the South African IGF. Both the chairperson and the deputy chairperson are young people. They are here at the conference. And like I said, this is the first time that us as parliamentarians are forming part of this. And that is because of this different approach to government, which now includes the voices of young people. And because we listen, I'm here today. So I think that's a good step in the right direction for South Africa.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing the experiences. I think there were a few more points if you would like to get back to the mic before we wrap up the session. There's a mic next to you.
Oui. Merci beaucoup, Madame. Je suis l'honorable Vwanga.
Thank you very much. I come from the Democratic Republic of Congo in Kinshasa, and I would like to ask a question in French. So I would like to ask a more technical question. It is a very intense question because every time we talk about legislation, human rights, we know that we're all regulators, but not everybody can draft a piece of legislation. It is difficult, and some people don't have the proper tools to do so. So I would like to insist on the role that the UN is playing when it comes to human rights. Once you understand the reality of the world in 1945, 1948, we started speaking about civil rights, political rights. This is the first generation of human rights. And then there were rights connected to the economy, to work. And this was the second generation of human rights, economic and social rights, if I may say so. And then came rights when it comes to the environment, to ecology. This is a third generation of rights, rights that have to be respected collectively when it comes to the environment. But now the UN hasn't recognized yet digital rights. This would be a fourth generation of human rights. Why do I say so? It is because when you read the constitutions in our different countries, many different countries have taken over what is written by the UN as a fundamental right. So when we talk about civic and democratic rights, we know what it is all about. When we talk about economic and social rights, we know what we deal with. But when we talk about digital rights, nowadays, people don't really know what it actually means. We don't know what digital rights are, and we don't know that it is part of the fourth generation of rights. And once the UN has a proper document about it, maybe we will have the possibility to write it in our own constitutions, in our own laws, because it is nice to want to write a bill, to want to draft a bill, but you have to have also the technical skills to do so. And this is our responsibility as MPs, and we need to have a common ground, just like the one we had for the three previous generations of rights.
We'll get back to that. And the second point, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Olga Reis, and I represent the private sector here. I work at Google, and I cover AI opportunity agenda for the region of emerging markets. I wanted, first of all, thank you so much for this insightful conversation, and I wanted to highlight a couple of points and then maybe react to some of the points that were raised during the panel discussion. We at Google look at such technologies as AI as a really transformative technology, once in a generation opportunity, especially for the region of emerging markets. But we also recognize that such technology should be developed and deployed boldly, responsibly, and together with international community, with public sector, with civil society, and our users. And one of the ways of how I believe this technology should be used in the context of content regulation, because there was a great deal of discussion around content regulation during the session, is that we, as a company that manages YouTube platform, utilize AI to tackle bad content on our platform. And I just pulled out statistics as we were talking about content moderation. In the first quarter of 2025, so January, February, March this year, we pulled down or took down 8.6 million videos on YouTube that didn't comply either with our own policies or with respective policies on the markets where we operate. And 55% of these 8.6 million videos were removed before they were watched at all, meaning that they were uploaded by content creators but not published, and we detected them automatically. And further 27% of this bad content was removed with less than 10 views. So that just shows the scale of how we can actually use such technology as AI to tackle bad content on our platforms. However, I wanted to use this opportunity to speak, not to talk about content, but I felt compelled to bring up these statistics, but about the need, I would say, of companies like Google to actually work on capacity building of public officials and parliamentarians, including around the use of AI for their work, but also around how AI can contribute to driving economic growth, especially in emerging markets. And just 2 points to highlight, or 2 programs to highlight that we as a company are doing. Next week, we are actually gathering a number of regulators from the MENA region in our London office to talk for 3 days about regulations, challenges around regulations, including on AI and cloud and content issues. This is something that we've been doing for many years already, and we have similar programs around the world, especially in emerging markets. And there is a second program that I wanted to highlight that is actually available for everyone and specifically built for public officials. This is a program that is called AI Campus that we as a company built in cooperation with Apolitical, which is an NGO based out of UK. And this is a program that is built specifically for public officials to upskill them on AI issues. We have already 7 courses available on different aspects of AI, and 100,000 officials have already gone through this online training. And I would encourage and invite all public officials that are present in this room to, to make use of this content, and we will make sure that we actually update and develop it, because the technology does move and evolve very quickly. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you also, and we have one more point there. Okay, a few more points. If we can be quick, otherwise I will be taken down here. Let's start here.
Hello, I'm Anne McCormick from Ernst & Young EY, also private sector, but a different perspective. It's very important not to simplify private sector, small and big enterprises, innovators, but also organizations. We work with clients across very different sectors, across almost all the countries in this room. We see there is a need for clarity on what is reliable AI. The liability gets transferred to more and more economic actors in the economy, small and big, as we adopt, embed, and deploy AI. So I would urge policymakers, legislators to look at the health and dynamism of their economy and consider the different aspects of the private sector, not just the large tech companies that are the ones in the headlines, but the similar and in some cases very different needs and very different interests of economic players and companies that are adopting and embedding AI and who are increasingly concerned about AI governance. We see company leaders, board members, but also investors and insurance companies asking about how do you know that the AI that you're buying, no matter what its brand, right? How do you know its limits, its risks? Are you potentially liable? How are you going to deploy it with confidence? How are you going to make sure that your employees, your own clients, your reputation as a company, right, is maintained? So it is very important not to overregulate, but it is important that there are the right mechanisms to encourage disclosure, encourage transparency, not the black box, encourage accountability through the life cycle of an AI with independent oversight, possibly independent assurance or assessments, so that everybody can use this extraordinary technology with confidence and we get the best out of it. There are multiple economic voices. The private sector has many different facets, and I really want to emphasize this as adoption grows. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And there was one more point, if we can be very fast, please.
Thank you so much. I'll be fast. Amy Mitchell with Center for News Technology and Innovation in the States. And I had a quick follow-up thought and question, I guess, if you have a second to respond to it, on the digital information space. And it was great to hear topics of the freedom of expression, of thinking about the balance of safeguarding as well as maintaining freedom of expression, and then media freedom specifically, and in the new EU initiative that's being passed. And I'm curious as to the thoughts that are in place on how one puts definitional language around those things. As we know, the public access to information is vast today, and the range of those that are producing journalism, moving from the very traditional space to all kinds of different producers, including in some cases citizens themselves, that can be in need of that safeguard and protection of freedom. So I'd be curious, as you're developing these acts, the thought around the definitional language, and then also on safeguarding in the enforcement side, so that things like that cannot, per later government structures, as we know governments can change over time inside a country, to be sure that they don't end up being used in a way that can be used to harm. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking at the hosts, IGF Secretariat and IPU, asking if we can take 1 more minute per speaker to try to reflect on the points. Okay, thank you so much. So let's try to reflect on some of these issues, please.
Bueno, yo dos remarks.
So for the Google representative, I will speak in Spanish. I think that YouTube Kids and the experience there is something that creates a different digital system, and the social networks doesn't have this. So this is like in the real world, we would allow for the kids to go to the casino. If they go to Instagram, it's like a kid going to the disco or to the casino. So to create algorithms fully controlled and a different kind of ecosystem, I think it's a great thing, and it should be applied elsewhere as well. But I don't know if 2020, Olga, I don't know if you remember, when we were in Argentina, when you were looking for the name of the, it said thief of the Argentinian nation, it said, and there was a trial related to this. If this happens to someone who's the vice president of the country and with a company like Google, then you can think only of what protection would be like in the lower layers. And now the current president, Milei, has also done things in this regard. So thank you.
Any reflections?
Yeah, I think just on the AI element from an African perspective, there should be a balance also around the importance of the well-being of people and profits. My country is known for an apartheid history, and we've realized that in the AI training, that there is still the presence of a risk of what I would call digital apartheid. And this is quite a unique danger for us. And there is no attention given, especially by the private sector, on the importance of this, in terms of even profiling based on a historic racial separation, where if AI, just to make it practical, if an AI like me, I look around the room, I'm like the darkest in the room. And if AI picks up, they differentiate between, even on that level, a darker profiling for someone that looks like me. And if that's a repeat now, then we cannot rejoice for a digital future. We should be concerned that that digital future is repeating an ugly history. Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Just very briefly on the remark for the fourth generation of rights and the need for a common approach. Absolutely agree, because I actually believe that this is probably going to resolve the enforcement issue as well, because you've made a very valid point on the fact that it's very difficult to enforce something which is not defined or not well understood. So, point taken.
Mr. Batara, anything from you?
Okay.
Just to add quickly on the point on digital rights, it's true we don't really have new UN instrument dealing with them, but there are quite a few Human Rights Council resolutions, for instance, which say clearly the same rights that people have offline must also be protected online, so at least we can use that as a starting point. We've taken 15 more minutes of everyone's time. Thank you so much to our speakers. Thank you so much to all of you for contributing and for still being in the room. We hope this has been useful as a last session of the parliamentary track. I know something will still happen in this room, so please do not leave, and my colleagues will be telling you a bit more. Thank you so much, and good luck with the rest of the IGF.
Say we should try to finish by 5.
Hello, everyone. We will try to close the session as soon as possible because we know that we're already a little bit over time. So it is scheduled to be until 5 p.m. If we manage to do it by then, the better, but we can, of course, also extend by 5 to 10 minutes. The technical team just confirmed it. So first, I would actually like to sincerely thank the members of parliament for coming to the IGF. As you know, this has been...
Excuse me, everybody. If I could ask for your attention for this closing part of the parliamentary track, thank you. If anyone would like to continue their conversation outside, maybe just your attention for Céline. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we are soon done. We sincerely wanted to thank all members of parliament for joining the IGF. So we are closing the parliamentary track of the IGF today, but the sessions and the conversations do continue in other parts of the forum. So in general, since, as you may know, since 2019, we are providing a space for members of parliament to be part of our forum, and this is where we try to develop from year to year what we call the IGF parliamentary track. We want, of course, to make it better from year to year, so we do appreciate also your feedback and would welcome it very much. And before I actually give the floor also to Andy, our close collaborator from the Interparliamentary Union, I also wanted to mention that we do have over 176 national and regional IGF initiatives, and we also very much encourage members of parliament not only to take part in our global parliamentary track, but also the ones that exist at regional, sub-regional, or even national levels. So I would like to give the floor now to Andy so that we discuss a little bit more the next steps for the output document that is resulting from that track.
Thank you, Céline, and to everybody who is still with us today. At the end of each parliamentary track at IGF, there is an output document which tries to capture and summarize your discussions and then becomes part of the formal record of the parliamentary track, part of the record of this IGF, and is also distributed to all national parliaments. And so between Céline, myself, and with the help of many others, we've tried to capture the different points that have come up in your discussions. A draft was circulated this morning, and we received a lot of very positive feedback, indicating a strong degree of consensus. Also some suggestions for modifications. I'll say a couple of words about the document and then open the floor if anyone would like to make further observations. So firstly, on the output document itself, what does it say? Our discussions here have been largely focused on questions of information integrity, of combating online harms while protecting freedom of expression. And the main ideas can be maybe captured in 3 Ps: parliaments, platforms, and power. Noting that parliaments, of course, have the fundamental law-making role, that all legislation should be in line with and compliant with international human rights principles, and really inviting parliaments to draw upon the best available expertise within the technical community and amongst the whole IGF multi-stakeholder community. There's also been a lot of discussion of the role of platforms and the particular responsibilities that platforms bear when it comes to information integrity and combating online harms. And from this intersection between parliaments and platforms, there are really questions of power, relational power, where that sits. And you've heard the discussions yourselves. It's a very dynamic relationship with different perspectives, but it's very much a live issue of where does the power lie. And out of your discussions, the main conclusion that we really heard from you was about the fundamental importance of cooperation and dialogue. Cooperation between parliaments to share experiences, but also cooperation between parliaments and public authorities and the whole range of stakeholders, including the technical sector, including the very powerful technical companies. These questions can only be resolved through ongoing dialogue. And so the output document attempts to capture these points. The feedback on the draft made some really interesting and useful suggestions for additions, which, with your approval, we propose to take on board. So points around noting the environmental impact of technologies, particularly AI data centers, reinforcing the notion of digital inclusion for women, children, but also other groups which risk exclusion, such as people with disabilities, and reinforcing some of the points around trying to balance security with freedom of expression and combating hate speech. So there are a lot of really useful comments which will be integrated into the output document. There were a couple of proposals for deletions which didn't obviously meet with the consensus of the discussions. I'll reference them. There were proposals to delete references to the IGF and participation in international processes, to delete references to civil society, but really it didn't feel that these were in line with the majority of views during the discussion. So unless someone wishes to pursue and explain the points, we may set those aside. So with that, this is the very main ideas around the output document as a reflection of your discussions. We have a little bit of time, a couple of minutes, if there are any further observations on the draft which you received earlier today and following these comments. Would anyone like to make any further comments? Please raise your hand.
Bonjour, it's Anne McCormick from EY again. We provided some written comments, but I had a question, which is, given the importance of speed, concreteness, and credibility in these types of statements, from your experience and that of the people in this room, how do we make sure that this statement has weight and credibility? Do we state that we will monitor this, or that we will come back and review progress on each of the points and sub-points in 6 months? how do we make this more than talk? Talk matters, but talk itself loses the power of its content if it's not followed by action.
Thank you. A comment from this side.
My name is Maha Abdel Nasser. I'm from Egypt. Actually, this is the third international IGF I'm attending. I can say that we always say very great things. So capitalizing on what my colleague was just saying, I would love to have for the next IGF something like, I don't know, a table saying that we need to take down what is already done or what we could achieve year over year. So we don't just get out with the very good document, but we don't know what they are going to do with it in our parliaments or in our governments, our countries, or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you. A colleague from Algeria.
Thank you, Andy. I switch to French, please.
With regard to the draft of the outcomes of the parliamentary track, we would like, in the name of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean, to formulate three reservations of the respect of national sovereignty, because we would like to underline the importance of to allow each parliament to regulate its digital space according to its societal and cultural framework. This is very important when you're talking about the legislative approaches about the regulation of platforms and online content. I have sent you the references of the paragraphs that we're talking about. Secondly, we need a balance between freedom of expression and freedom online. Of course, we have to reach this balance between freedom of expression and combating disinformation. However, we cannot allow for compromises like harmful content, disinformation, or bullying. Equitable inclusion of southern countries and Mediterranean countries are important. We insist on the need for reinforcing support and assistance to southern and eastern parliaments of the Mediterranean region in order to have an inclusive and proper implementation of these principles. We thank you for the good collaboration and mutual respect. I would like to ask you when we will have the final version of this document. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have indeed received your written input as well. We have a couple more comments from Kenya and from Egypt, and then from the colleague at the back of the room. Thank you.
I must thank you, and I must thank the organizers. The team from IPU did a good job. Celine, thank you very much to all the panelists during the parliamentary track. Amazing presentations. One of the things that I think need to be captured out of IGF 2025 is the urgency with which every member of parliament who has spoken here is asking for us to define the mission. We have been coming to IGF and generally speaking about technology, and then in the last few years now we are hearing about AI. The conversations are general. They're talking about what parameters we should put, but now there is an urgency in terms of what instruments, specific instruments, are going to be developed so that we can draw the riverbanks for this work that we are doing. Each and every person I've listened to, including at the plenary when Joseph Gordon was presenting, each of them has a struggle. The developers have a struggle. I heard him speak about the struggle that the creatives have. We definitely have a struggle about data representation. And people are asking, what is that common ground that defines this struggle for all of us, so that it is not a developer versus government front, or a civil society versus government, or even people versus big tech. We're asking, what is that common ground, and how can it be put in an instrument that we're able to pursue? And to my mind, I'm thinking about working towards strategies, working towards frameworks, and with the need to come to treaties or universally binding conventions. And the urgency is real. Everybody is saying to us, we've spoken too much, let's put it to the ink to paper. I thank you.
Thank you very much. From Egypt.
Thank you so much. I'll be very quick about my suggestion. In my experience to develop the draft bill on climate in Egypt, I used a climate policy radar, which is a very good platform where every legislation that is related to climate anywhere in the world is put on the map and is accessible for every parliamentarian. This gives the wealth of knowledge on the legislation. I suggest the same thing, which could be easily done in collaboration with the Inter-Parliamentary Union and the IGF Secretariat, to have a digital inclusion or digital governance radar on all what has been released from the parliamentarians across the world when it comes to digital governance. That would be extremely beneficial to any parliamentarian. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And perhaps a final comment at the back of the room, please.
Thank you so much, dear honorable colleagues and experts. First of all, I want to thank you for the enlightenment discussions and inputs we got the last 2 days. It was amazing, and we tackled a lot of issues that are very, very important. Especially, we discussed risks of digitalization, of AI. We explored threats to human rights, to democracy, to truth itself through deepfake and algorithmic manipulation. One thing that we tackled not enough, that I also sent to you, is the issue of environmental impact of the technologies we use. Especially AI is very intense in energy, and I just wanted to stress out the point that we also have to think about that probably all the time, because it's an issue that tackles us on the whole world, and I think we have to, the only part where we did that, it was yesterday in the parliament. There was a discussion about that, and I wanted to enforce that we get that too. Thank you.
Thank you very much to everybody for these very useful inputs. We take good note of all of these points. I think the first speakers raised the core action, referring to the urgency, to the need to move. Now, I think that this is a shared responsibility amongst every person in the room, whether they're a member of parliament or a different type of participant. There are different ways and at different levels that each of us can be taken action. Firstly, the parliamentarians here are truly and genuinely the central figures in this, and so it's within your national parliaments what questions are being raised, what hearings are being carried out, and are you able to move the political agenda in your own countries? We've heard a lot about the different resources available within the IGF community, and really an invitation to draw upon the expertise of the technical community, of civil society in the private sector, parliaments can engage in their national IGF communities. These communities exist very broadly. They can engage at the regional level as well, where there are many guidance documents and fora that exist. And at our level, at the IPU level, we are committed to continuing the exchange between parliaments, providing fora for ongoing exchange of experience. I talked a little bit earlier about we have a specific focus around AI at the moment because it's so new and emerging. So many parliaments are asking themselves questions. Tomorrow, in partnership with UNDP, there will be a session on AI regulation where we will hear examples from different jurisdictions, from the European Parliament, from Egypt and from Uruguay, but also all other parliaments that want to come and share what they have done or what they are doing. We are currently tracking parliamentary actions on AI policy. There are also other sources of what legislation exists, and there are links to all of the committees that are acting, to all of the draft legislation. If your parliament is taking action on AI policy, we want to hear about that so that that can be shared. And as the colleague from UNDP referred to earlier, we are about to publicly announce that at the end of November, the Parliament of Malaysia will host, along with the IPU, UNDP, and the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, a major parliamentary event on the role of parliaments in developing responsible AI. We see very much our role as trying to connect the members of parliament who are trying to take action in this area so that they can exchange notes on their progress, on their challenges, their obstacles, and how to try to work together and build the coalitions that you've been describing today. So at all of these different levels, we believe there's space for progress, and frankly, I think we're heartened as well by the very high level of participation in this parliamentary track, and it's a sign that there is action taking place in your parliaments. We will clean up the output document, we will circulate it, and we hope that this will be helpful to you as you try to advance your agendas in your parliaments. Celine, maybe a closing word?
Thank you very much, Andy, also for this very good summary. Perhaps just for advanced information, we will also, in addition to this output document, have some summary of discussions from each of the sessions, and we will, of course, also track the different references that have been done, different documents that have been mentioned, especially from the session that happened just before with all the various stakeholder groups that came together and really wanted to show some concrete collaboration opportunities with you, members of parliament. And last but not least, before closing the parliamentary track, I mentioned already that there are other sessions taking place for the rest of the week from different stakeholder groups organized, and there are specific ones that are really inviting members of parliament also to join. So one of them will be starting tomorrow at 9 here in StudioN, a collaborative sessions on foundations of AI and cloud policy. There is also one that has been mentioned by the European Parliament, including youth and their policy visions, happening later on in Westfold, also in the morning. And we have also the session that has been mentioned by Andy, co-organized by UNDP as well with the Interparliamentary Union in the afternoon from 2:45 to 3:45 on the AI regulation. And last but not least, there's also a session on the 26th organized by the Sami Parliament together with the Norwegian government and also UNESCO on addressing the barriers to indigenous language technology and AI uptake. So again, explore the program, and also last but not least, let us know about any feedback that you may have. We're going to integrate it also for future sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Celine. And with that, thank you. And with those final words, I thank the Parliament of Norway for hosting this parliamentary track, to all of the participants, and particularly to Celine for all of her efforts in putting this together. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the IGF.